It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show!
Hey there, everybody. It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
Les Webster.
Hello, all.
Liz Newman.
Hello, everybody.
And for this week, we have a special guest. Longtime listeners will be familiar with this voice, I hope. He's been on a few times, and it's always a blast to have him. He is half of the host from Rancor Pit, a Star Wars podcast, and Figments, the Unexplained Mysteries podcast, and you can check those out on DallasOnAir.com. Figments can be seen the first Sunday of the month at 9:30 a.m. Central Time, and Rancor Pit can be seen first and third Sundays at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. Please welcome Eddie Medina.
Hello, campers. And that was pretty good. You got all that down with days and times. Wow.
Hey.
I don't think he even inhaled.
No,
It was all in one breath.
pretty
Hey,
different.
just like Bill Clinton, he didn't inhale.
Oh,
Oh, pretty good for someone who's having problems with his sinus. Hey, pretty good.
Yeah,
Mhm.
pretty good.
Welcome, man.
Thank you for having me on. I love stopping by and playing in y'all's neighborhood whenever I get the chance.
Well, we've been wanting to do this for a while, and we figured we need to return the favor since Les and I were on Rancor Pit a couple of months back. And if y'all have not watched the episode, it is on our website, www.fellowshipofthegeeks.net. Click on the webcast, and it's the most recent post, or just go to YouTube, and it's under Rancor Pit, right?
It's not yet.
Oh, it's not on, so it's not on YouTube? Well,
I'm way behind on updating our YouTube channel. Let's
Okay.
just put it that way. It is on Facebook. You can see it on our Rancor Pit Facebook page.
Or it's also on DallasOnAir.com, and you just go to the different shows, and you can look for Rancor Pit, and while you're at it, check out Figments.
Yeah, it'll be up on DallasOnAir.com for about another week or two, and then it rotates out after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And possibly a third podcast?
I don't know, but the response was really strong on it. Well, okay, so the story is Cole Houston, my co-host on the Rancor Pit, went out of town. So Colleen, my wife, who's my co-host on Figments, joined me on Rancor. And for years, I mean, we've been doing Rancor for 6 years, and since like day one, I've wanted to do an Indiana Jones episode, since that's George Lucas's other, playground. And so with Cole out of town, I finally got the chance, and Colleen and I, we'd already been kicking around an idea of doing an indie podcast and calling it Fortune and Glory. And so we thought, let's just do like a trial run of Fortune and Glory on Rancor and see how it goes. And we did it, and the response was really, really good. So
it was a good pilot. It was really, really good. I enjoyed the heck out of it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So we are now considering, even though our schedules are really busy,
Yeah.
doing as a somewhat, at least a quarterly podcast, we're thinking, at least.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So the schedule's so busy that she won't be able to do a Murder, She Wrote podcast, right?
No, she always has time to talk Murder, She Wrote, so.
Okay.
Yeah, we might still do that.
Oh, yeah, I can tell you're really excited about that.
If the Fellowship ever decides to tackle Murder, She Wrote, then, you know who to call. You can call Colleen, and she'll answer that call.
I'm sure she will. It'd be probably hard to be difficult to kind of keep her quiet.
It's funny when I got to meet Starbuck, Dirk Benedict, a few weeks back at all con. When Colleen found out, she was like, he was in an episode of Murder, She Wrote. And I was like, really? I said, yeah, it's called Smooth Operator. And I was like, oh, okay. So when I met him,
Of course it was.
I mentioned it to him, and he just kind of looked up at me, kind of like did his eyebrow up, and goes, yeah, I did that. And that's all he said.
Well, she's a true fan, and she knows the episodes by name.
Yeah. Oh, she
I mean,
does.
that's just like Trekkies knowing all
That's
the episode titles.
It's funny because she's also a Trekkie, and she knows all the original episode titles too.
Cool.
It's cool.
So we're happy to have you here, and hope everybody out there is doing okay. So how are y'all guys doing?
Lovely.
Great.
Oker doker.
Katoker, huh?
Mike, she said great.
She
I
did.
said great again.
Hey.
I have to come back around,
There's so many lines in the thesaurus for that.
Mm. After a
So
hiatus.
many ways to
Mike
say
is
I'm
back. So what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Well, I've actually been watching some documentaries because apparently I had gone a while without doing so, and so now I'm like, I apparently was like jonesing, so I've been pulling them down off of Amazon Prime pretty hard and fast here. Two of them, real quick. There is one called That Guy Dick Miller. This was from 2014, and it's about Dick Miller, not surprisingly. Most people, I think, would be really shocked to realize how many movies this guy was in.
Hundreds, thousands.
Yeah, hundreds. I mean, easily hundreds. Over a ridiculously long career. I mean, he was still doing movies like 2 years before he died. It was just amazing. He's in this documentary about his own life, and it's a lot of fun. You get to see clips and hear stories about things from movies, just unbelievable stuff. So it's really cool, really fun. Check it out. The other one is a little more of a downer. It's called Vampira and Me, and this is from 2012, and this is the story of Vampira. And the actress who played her. It's interesting to me because the shows that she did back in the early 50s, the TV shows, I mean, she was the original horror movie host. This is all of the ones that are going on now. They all started here, and it's a really interesting story. And she didn't really get much of anything out of it. And so it's really kind of sad. And also none of the shows were recorded, so you can't there are a few clips that are a couple of minutes long that are honestly people pointing a camera at their TV screens, and that's all that survives from the show.
Wow.
Wow, that's
That
too
is
bad.
Yeah, and so there's just nothing, and she got hardly anything. I mean, like I said, she drew a salary for a couple of years, and that was it. So yeah, and this all started from a friend of hers who had interviewed her for something else, and like 2 minutes of that interview had been used for what it was for, but he had like this whole hour of interview with her, and so he broke it up and told her story through it, and it's a really good documentary. Not particularly happy story, but definitely worth a watch if you're into that sort of thing.
And where
That's
did you watch
interesting.
this?
These are both on Amazon Prime.
Okay. Cool.
I've never heard of Vampira, and as you were saying it, I'm Googling it, and man, she's like the almost like you can almost see where they would have gotten Lily Munster from, just taking or Morticia actually, not Lily Munster, but
Right, and no, the idea was she kind of got handed she was at a costume party, basically dressed as Morticia Addams.
oh, okay,
And
okay.
then all of this TV show thing came out of that. It kind of took over her life for a while, and she basically created the whole thing, pretty much herself. Her husband came
Wow.
up with the name, but the rest of it was all her. And yeah, she was really popular for about 5 years, and then it was gone,
Wow.
just gone.
Wow.
That's something.
And all of that based on, like I said, she was doing that host for scary movies in L.A. It was a local station in L.A. And she became nationally known from it. And it all went away in just a few years. But yeah.
God.
Wow.
Yeah, the character was in the movie Ed Wood.
Mm-hmm.
And
she actually consulted on that.
Yeah, she did. And then Dick Miller has been around for so many years.
Oh, yeah.
People may know him best as the snowplow driver in, what was it now?
Was that Gremlins?
Gremlins, yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, and Jackie, I'm trying to remember her name. Jackie was the wife of the snowplow driver.
Yeah, he was in a bunch of Joe Dante movies.
Oh, Joe Dante loved him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, he was in Matinee.
Explorers. God, so many.
Yeah.
I love Dick Miller. God, anytime you saw him, you just it's kind of like seeing an old friend. He was in the first Terminator.
Yeah. Yeah, he was.
He was the gun dealer.
Yep.
That Arnold shot down.
Mm-hmm.
I literally just saw him in something on TV where, going through some older shows, something. I mean, no joke. It may have been Murder, She Wrote, but it was something we were watching on a regular basis, and lo and behold, he popped up in the episode. So yeah, he just kind of showed up everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I kind of want to say he's underrated, but I don't think he was because he was everywhere.
I mean, he was working really hard. I mean, and doing a lot of very wide and varied roles along the way. I mean, from playing the kind of the mental guy in Bucket of Blood, to just playing random smartasses here and there. Yeah, I mean, they were showing him one role. He was playing it was in some sort of war movie. He was playing a soldier, and he was like the leader guy, and was the guy who had all the brains in the outfit. Was him, and it was it's really interesting stuff.
He also has that really funny scene in The Burbs. He's the garbage man with Robert Picardo, who played the holographic doctor on Voyager.
Yep.
Showed
a clip of that too.
Yeah, they're the two garbage guys, and they have this whole interaction with Tom Hanks and gosh, the other guy who plays Art, the neighbor. So yeah, he's just one of those actors. You saw him in everything, like
all over the place. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He was in the Flash TV show back in the 90s. Oh man, he's just been in everything. He was the. Do you remember, of course, Mask of the Phantasm? Of course, I always had to bring it back to Batman somehow. He was the character Chucky Saul at the beginning of the movie. Chucky Saul, the angel of death awaits. Yeah, he was the voice of Chucky Saul. So yeah, he's done tons and tons of stuff. So, oh.
That's cool.
Was the other garbage man Rick Dukeman? Or the neighbor, I'm sorry. The neighbor, wasn't that Rick Dukeman?
Yes. That I think that's his name. He had that
in Die Hard.
Yeah, the guy in the manhole in Die Hard.
Yep.
Yep.
I want to see both of those. They sound rather interesting.
Yeah, I do too.
It does.
Yep, good stuff.
Thanks for the word on that.
Mm-hmm.
Next.
Cool. Well, I don't really have a lot this week. I guess I'm getting ready for the new baby that I'll have next week, and that's pretty much consumed. But golly, I guess yesterday we almost flooded out. I don't know if you guys had a problem with that, but
it was raining a lot.
I have a creek that runs like right behind my house.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this water was like up to the bridge. The baseball fields were all underwater, so it was kind of like,
Whoa.
oh man. Yeah.
Oh, that
Should I
park by
see the
her
boat?
house is pretty low lying anyway. I remember playing softball there 20 years ago. It was not a great field
Yeah.
then. I hope they've done something to it.
Well, they're about to tear it all down and make it a skate park.
Oh, yay.
Yay.
Flood
all
out
we
the
need.
skaters.
Skating or surfing? I mean, it would have been surfing yesterday, but
Yeah, it was definitely surfing. And, you know, I guess it was about 15, 16 years ago. We spent like lots and lots and lots of money to widen this creek out. Because before that, anytime it would rain, it would beep at us and let us know, hey, it's getting high. But we've never had that problem. Well, I take that back. I think last year we had flooding here too. But it was more on the other side of the creek than this side. So it was just definitely different, and kind of one of those you kept looking out the door going, okay, stay there. Don't come anymore.
you break out the snorkels.
Yeah. At one point, I checked the rain thing, and it was all the way full, which I think is 5 inches. And so I ran out there real quick during one of the breaks, and I emptied it out. And I'm no kidding you, the sky opened up for like maybe 15 more minutes, and 2 more inches fell. So it was like, dang.
Wow.
Yeah, it was coming down pretty good.
Yeah. So we got about 7 inches in about 2.5, 3 hours yesterday. So it was definitely, it was scary. So yeah, not a lot on my end. So I'll give my 15 minutes to Thomas.
Well, I have nothing, so Les, it's your turn.
So let's
Oh,
get
wow.
30 minutes.
So yeah, he gets 30.
Well, I've been reading some novels, and I am in the middle of the 3rd book of Darklands, the 4-book series by Lynn I. Kelly. Thomas may remember Kelly, a man that I met at one of the conventions, and he had his first book there, which I read and was interested in. It was really a good book, and Liz, I may pass this off to you because it is fun to read. It's similar to Harry Potter and the Walking Dead.
Ah,
And
that's
it's
pretty cool.
It's a good series. Like I said, I'm in the 3rd book, and when I saw him at the convention, Mr. Kelly recognized me right away. Reason being, I did a review of his first book, and he has used a quote from my book, or from my review, on the 2nd edition of Book 2. He also used it as a table stand at conventions. So
Wow.
I'm pleased. I'm happy that he did that.
That's cool.
And now I'm looking at books into Book 3 and on to 4.
Cool.
Yeah, I remember him. Remember him being so excited about the review. Yeah.
Yeah.
How many books are in the series?
There are 4 books in the series.
Oh, currently, yeah.
Yes,
Is it gonna make
and
any-
it's a finite series.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So he's just really bad at writing trilogies? Is that how that worked out?
Well, everybody does trilogies, Mike.
Yeah.
They're to be different.
Not everybody does a foragy.
There you go. I guess.
No, not really.
I don't know how to take that either, so.
I guess 4 is the new 3.
Oh, there you go.
There you
Could
go.
be.
So how about you, Eddie? What's been going on in your neck of the woods?
Lots. I'm wrapping up the school year. Looking forward to summer break. I underestimated how draining teaching can be full time.
Oh yeah.
I used to teach full time way back, and then stopped doing it to illustrate full time. Then took this PE job this past school year, and I love it. It's insanely satisfying job. But boy, am I ready for a summer break. So yeah, so we just had our field day Friday, and that was something I have been envisioned all year long, having like an old school field day, and took about 2 months to plan the whole thing, and it went off perfectly. Everybody had fun. The parents were excited. The kids were excited. The administration had nothing but praises for me. So it's a good way to end the school year, to cap it off. So.
Yeah, in my experience, and I've known a few teachers, they earn those summer vacations. That's for sure.
And then some.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a lot of work.
My neighbor is a teacher, and she's like, this last month of school is literally, it feels like 6 months. You know, the kids are tired, they're tired. She works in the library, so everybody's like bringing these books they should have been bringing all school year. Like, it can take me 2 weeks after we close just to get it done. So, I feel for you guys, I really do.
Well, like I said, it's a very satisfying job. I don't know. It would take a job like this to pull me away from illustrating, which I still do part time, but not to the extent I had been for the past 10 years. So it's very satisfying. I wouldn't give it up.
I like
at least not,
kids too.
at least not in the immediate future. I mean, there's only so much. I mean, I can't imagine I'm going to be teaching PE when I'm 80, but if I can at least maybe. Well, no, look at Schwarzenegger. He's pushing. What is he? Is he in his 70s?
42.
He seems like it.
As long as no one drop kicks him.
I know. Did you see that?
I saw the video.
That was so funny. Is they said this kid took a running start from across the gym, and he barely moved Arnold, and he ended up on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, he got him on the back, but I mean, he may have took a half a step, and yeah, the kid's on the ground, and then of course, as soon as he's on the ground, security's on top of him too.
Yeah.
And of course, Arnold's turning around going, "What was that? What was that, Nat?"
I know. Dragging the kid off, he's like, he won't be back. He said that at first he didn't realize someone had kicked him. He said he thought that the crowd was just jostling him around. He goes, because that happens pretty often when there's a crowd.
I bet. Yeah.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, like I said, not much on my end. Too much real world has been thinking, and I started a new job a couple weeks ago, and everything's been kind of revolving around that and trying to get settled in and all that. So hadn't done much of anything just yet. But we got a holiday coming up, so I'm going to be getting out there and reading a bunch of stuff when I can.
No, you're not going to be so busy to where you can't come back on Rancor Pit, right?
Oh, no, my Sundays will be
because I'll tell you what, I'm going to brag on you and Les for a minute. We had a phenomenal response to the two of y'all being on the show. No joke. I can't remember. Well, the last time we had that big of a response was about a year ago. This time a year ago when we had our group of Padawans back on the show for the second time. We have this little group of girls we call Team Ahsoka. They came on the show a couple years ago when they were fourth grade.
Oh yeah.
And then they returned at the end of their fifth grade year. They were going to be technically graduating from the Rancor Pit Academy because a lot of them were going off to different schools and middle schools, so we thought this would be the last chance to get as many of them together in the studio again before they all went off to different schools. And we had a big response to that episode, but quite honestly, after you and Les were on, it wasn't as big as the Padawans because it's hard to beat cute little kids coming on talking about Star Wars.
We understand that. Yeah.
But y'all had a great response. I was like, we got to have you guys back on.
It was fun.
Y'all really connected with the audience.
I enjoyed the heck out of it.
As did I. Yeah.
Cool.
So yes, we'll definitely work on that. Whenever y'all want us, we'll make it happen.
Well, I got to ask Mike and Liz, are y'all local?
Uh-huh.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, shoot. We'll have the whole fellowship on.
Okay.
If y'all are wanting to talk Star Wars sometime with us.
That'd be cool.
I'm down.
There you go.
I probably have some hot Star Wars opinions.
I cannot imagine that.
I would love to. It was one thing to have you and Les on, but if we could get all four of y'all on at the same time, number one, we would have to bring in extra mics, but I think that would be
crazy. I can tell you that.
I think that'd be quite a lively discussion. So we may have to make that happen sooner rather than later.
Sure. We'll try to work it out. I would love it.
Great.
Alrighty. Before we get into this week's discussion, I want to make an announcement about our next meet and gab. That will be June 8th, Saturday at 7 p.m. And we'll be meeting once again at Wing City. That is located at 1456 Beltline Road, Suite 120 in Garland. Zip 75044. We've had a great time in this past meetup. It's always kind of cool sitting in the middle and having 3 or 4 discussions going on and trying to keep up with all of them. But I think everybody had a great time, and everybody, if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, please come out. You want to meet us, or you just want to come have some good food and discuss anything going on in the geek universe, please, by all means, join us. Y'all had fun, right?
I always have fun. And it's neat to see the different faces, and I think it's pretty cool that if you just sit back and kind of listen to everybody, there's all these different conversations going on, and it's this is cool. I don't know where to jump in yet.
Yes, we had quite a few new faces this time. That was nice to see.
That was.
Nice to see.
And I thought Mikey brought half the crowd with him, and then he's like, no, those weren't my friends.
No, I didn't know those guys. It's some interesting conversation down there with them, but yeah, I've never met them before.
Yeah. But there were Twinkies, so it was kind of we thought you guys dressed alike on purpose.
Just because we're all wearing Star Wars shirts doesn't mean we're Twinkies. God.
See, if y'all were girls, you would have turned around to each other and said, you have to go change.
that bitch got on my clothes.
Yeah. No, you didn't.
Oh, no, you
Oh, no, you didn't. You got to do it with the snap of fingers, too.
Oh, yeah. And that little head tweet. No, you didn't.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Do it right.
be snapping in the air down there.
Mm-hmm.
So how many people did y'all have showing up?
About 10?
Oh, that's a good turnout.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I get family to come, and
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it's 20.
Yeah, Liz is the one that brings the entourage, not me.
Yeah. Yeah, we all show up by ourselves, and Liz has about 10 people by herself.
She's got her big old sunglasses and her cigarette holder and all of that.
Mhm.
big floppy hat.
Laying it up.
That's funny. Oh my gosh. And you said that's June 8th, the next one coming up?
Yes, Saturday. It's always the second Saturday of the month, and that will be June 8th. You and Colleen are more than welcome if y'all are. Is school going to be out by then?
It is, but unfortunately, that's one. The 8th is a stop on our Rancor Pit Summer Tour thing.
Okay.
We're going to be at the DFW G.I. Joe and action figure show. But
Cool.
No, I can't do 2nd July either. Sorry. It looks like my summer's out. Darn. Is this in the evening? Is this in the evening?
It's 7 p.m.
Okay. Possible for July. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah, we're usually there till 10 or so anyway. So.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it might work out.
Okay. Well, you're more than welcome, and of course, everybody out there in the listening audience, if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you're more than welcome. We would love to have you. Okay. I got to apologize, everybody out there. I'm battling sinus again. It's so just please bear with.
I think pretty much everybody is at this point.
Yeah.
Everybody I know is.
Mm-hmm.
I still.
Yeah. Wow. I'm surprised I've gone as long as I had without having this issue, but it finally got me. So this week we wanted to celebrate the 35th anniversary of this little itty bitty comic that's turned into a worldwide sensation. How many cartoons series? 3 or 4 at least.
At least. I think they just launched a new one.
A new one.
Mm-hmm.
3 or 4 movies, of course, an incredible toy line, video games, and everything. And I'm talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And that is part of the reason why we have Eddie on, because he is a big TMNT fan. And we figured, hey,
let's call in an expert.
Let's call in an expert.
I love talking about Ninja Turtles. Can we just begin? Do we just?
All right.
Okay. Well, I discovered Turtles really, really early on. Pretty much at the beginning. I remember my brother Vic, who is the reason I discovered a lot of things. He's the one that, at the age of 4, he told me about this new movie coming out called Star Wars, and he told me about this show coming out called The A-Team, and anything cool, my brother would let me know about it. He was like the bleeding cool news at the time. He always knew what was coming up. So I remember he was telling me, because we were hardcore into collecting comics. Actually, to take it back a step, I had always been reading comics, like when since I could start reading, so I was always reading comic books from an early age and collecting them. I would always, a lot of kids would buy their comics off the spinner rack, and they would just, trade them off to other kids or trash them or cut them up or whatever. Like, my brother and I would buy these off the spinner rack, and that was our reward for doing our chores that week. So after we were done reading them, we had a very specific box that we stored them all in. So we were comic collecting when we didn't realize that was a thing. So I was always familiar with Marvel and DC and Archie and Gold Key. In my young mind, I thought, okay, if there's a comic out there, it's done by one of these companies that put, whose logo I see on all these comics that I'm buying. And I never really knew that there was an indie comic scene at the time. I guess I just wasn't paying that close of attention. I mean, I wandered into a few comic shops here and there. If I how you would, I'd have a G.I. Joe subscription. And if you didn't renew your subscription quick enough, you'd miss an issue or two between the subscriptions back then. So we realized that we had to go to this comic shop to pick up the issues that we were missing between our subscriptions. And I remember, I guess Vic had caught word from somebody in the comic shop that there was this new comic coming out, and he was saying, yeah, apparently there's some new comic that's, I guess it just barely hit the stands, and the guy was looking for it there at Duncanville Books, but they didn't even order it because I guess they didn't take a chance on some no-name comic with a strange title. But I remember him telling me it's called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I remember thinking, what the heck kind of name is that? But at the same time, I was really enthralled by the name Ninja Turtles. What the heck? And I remember after that, him and I were obsessed, and we couldn't, every time we'd go somewhere, at this point, we had heard that there was a second printing because the first printing sold out. If your shop even got one, they sold out right away. So then we were looking for a second print. And then we had no luck getting that. And we were looking for the third print. Finally, I was able to get my hands on the fourth printing. And I guess this was like 1985 by the time. So I was waiting months and months to find a copy of this ridiculous Ninja Turtles comic. And I didn't even know what they looked like. I think I remember seeing like a little image of what they look like teeny tiny little image, maybe in like, do you remember how they would do the ads in the old Marvel comics where they would basically, like, I think American Comics was one, New England Comics was another, where they would literally just type out a list of comics they had for sale.
Yeah.
And then they would like put in a little picture of the Tick or, Wolverine or something like teeny tiny. I think I remember seeing a little image of a Ninja Turtle in one of those ads. So I finally, at least at one point, got like a taste of, okay, that's what they look like. They don't look like, I don't know. I can't remember how I pictured them back then before seeing them, but when I saw the black and white image of them and he was grimacing, he had this bandana on, I remember thinking, that's nothing like I thought they were going to look like. So I was even more obsessed. Like, I had to get this comic. So finally, jump ahead, like almost a whole year later, we finally got our hands on a fourth printing of number 1. And I opened it up and I was just blown away by the artwork. The violence, like I had never read a comic that violent before because, again, I was used to Gold Key and Marvel and DC and Archie comics. I was like, number one, that was also the first time I saw a comic book in black and white. Like I was thinking, where's the color? But at the same time, that black and white images just like mesmerized me. I was like, just that added to like the tone of the whole book. And so I read that thing cover to cover. My brother read it. We probably read it over and over and over. And then, going to the comic shop, we had to, by this time, a few issues had been released because we had to wait for, obviously, the later printing of the first issue. So then we got our hands, we couldn't get number 2. I remember we got number 3, 4, and 5. And so I ate those up too. And then I couldn't find the other issues, and I had to jump ahead and get issue number 9. And then, like, it was just, I was all over the place in collecting the issues. Like, whatever I could get my hands on, I got. And then eventually, more printing started coming out, graphic novel collections started coming out, and I think it was first Graphics came out with a 4-volume graphic novel set where they actually reprinted them in color. And then that was mind-blowing because all of a sudden all these turtle stories that I had memorized in black and white suddenly were like in this beautifully illustrated color versions. I mean, it was just to say, all that to say, it was like a great time to be a Turtle fan because that was Turtles like at its purest form, like pre-cartoon, pre-pizza, pre-joking around. I mean, of course there was jokes in the comic, but not like it was in the cartoon series. But, I mean, gosh, I was just so heavily invested in this Turtles comic book. And so, word comes around that they're developing action figures in a cartoon series. Well, then I'm thinking, how are they going to make a cartoon based on this? Like, this is not going to be for kids. But I was excited about the action figures because, being such a big Star Wars and G.I. Joe collector, I was thinking, oh, cool, I can have my, not knowing that they were going to be scaled too big, I was thinking my turtles are going to be able to fight Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, It wasn't the case. They were more scaled for He-Man more than anything. But were any of y'all, like, privy to Ninja Turtles? I know, Les, you were, because we've talked about it. What was your experiences in that era of Ninja Turtles prior to the cartoon?
Well, like you and your brother, I was looking for the number 1.
Yeah.
Because it came out and disappeared from the shelves, and I had to try to find this to read on it, because it's a great satire to start.
Yeah.
And I finally found one in a comic shop in Richardson, because Eastman and Laird were appearing there.
I remember that. I remember that event. I wanted so bad to go to that event, and we couldn't make it.
Yeah, the wife even brought that up tonight because I told her what we were going to discuss, And she said, "Oh, I remember that because I gave $75 to a comic book." I said, "Yeah, you kind of did."
And $75 for a issue number 1 first print is nothing. Nothing.
Yes, I agree. And you could tell it was a number 1 because of the ad for Fugitoid.
Yes.
And I got my copy, and the 2 guys were there for the signing, and they did sketches on the inside cover.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And I said, "Now this is too cool. This is the first time I'd had a celebrity do sketches on the covers." So I was really taken aback. But it was such a fad at that time for this series that it went leaps and bounds shortly after. Like you said, there were multiple variations of the series.
Yeah.
Printings that just went through the roof. And each was as well received as the previous. So.
Yeah, and if I can just jump in briefly, Les, that was, and I just realized that was probably the start right then of the variant cover, because every time they had a new printing of Ninja Turtles, they had a new cover for it to differentiate from the previous printings. And I'm probably mistaken, but was there variant covers prior to that?
Not that I recall. I don't recall any
not on that scale.
Yeah.
I mean, and they were getting like some, because the more printings that they were going into, the more steam that they were building with the book and more popular it was becoming. They were getting people like Richard Corbin to do the covers for the later printings. I mean, they weren't just doing the covers themselves. They were getting, it's like, I mean, to get Richard Corbin to do a cover for you, at the time, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Yes. But it was so much fun.
And it's funny because you had mentioned how it's a satire. I didn't pick up on the fact that it was supposed to be satirical until years later when I started to discover, even though it had already been around for quite a while, it took me a while to discover Frank Miller's Daredevil run. And even though it preceded Turtles and that's what they were, spoofing, I discovered Frank Miller's Daredevil run later in the 90s. And when I started to read that Daredevil run, I thought, wait a second. Duh. The foot, the hand, splinter, stick. It was all right there. They even, the kid who apparently is carrying the turtles, then isn't there speculation that he's Matt Murdock? And he got struck by the little canister of ooze that falls off this TGRI truck. I mean, the TCRI truck. It strikes him and it turns the turtles into mutants. It's also supposedly the same stuff that made Matt Murdock as a boy go blind. So,
exactly.
Yeah. So it was all right there. I just didn't realize it till like 10 years after the fact.
You are correct.
Yep.
And of course, they were mocking the fact that you had mutants all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
So let's be sure to cash in on that.
Yeah. Yeah, X-Men, the X-Mutants. Even though they weren't called mutants in the DC universe, who did DC have as their answer to X-Men at the time? Was it anybody or?
As a power grace, I can't recall anything. But in terms of like popularity, I would say like the new Teen Titans.
I was thinking that. That's probably where they got Teenage from.
Probably.
From the Teen Titans.
Yeah.
So, Thomas, when did you discover? Did you discover them about this era, or did you get into it later?
I got into it later. I had actually picked up a collection of the first few issues, and I mean, it was a couple of years down the road. It was. I don't remember the cartoon being around, but I had just came across it. I had heard about it, and I'm like, okay, you know what the heck? Because I kind of glanced through it, and yeah, the art was very impressive. I dug what I saw, so I'm like, okay, let's get this, and I read it, and yeah, it was great. I enjoyed the heck out of it. And then when I heard, that there was a cartoon, I was going, yeah, just like you, it was like, how is this going to work? And then you see it, and everything's kind of, it has been kind of tuned back. And I mean, even to the point where everybody has different colored bandanas.
Yeah.
As if the weapons weren't enough to kind of associate, okay, this is Leo, this is Michelangelo, and all that. You got to do it by the color codes, too.
Yeah. Exactly. And every iteration of Turtles that have come since, they tweak it even more to the point that now we have Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and now all 4 turtles are different species of turtles, so they all look different from each other. Like one is, tall and skinny, one is massively bulky, and one is, smaller than the others. One just kind of has like that typical hero form, it's
Yeah.
So yeah, they just keep getting more and more. They keep mutating, I guess, every time they come out with a new one. Liz, when did you ever get to a point where you discovered turtles, or are you not a fan of turtles, or what?
I'm a fan of turtles, but I have to admit I didn't know who they were until the cartoon had come out. And I was the type of girl, I always hung around with the little boys and played G.I. Joe and that kind of thing. So when they started talking about turtles, at first it was like, turtles? Really? Yeah, sure. You want me to bring my dolls next time?
Yeah, because as a kid, you're thinking like turtle toys. You're thinking like little rubber turtles that you use in the bathtub or something.
Or like Franklin.
Yeah, yeah, there you go, Franklin.
Like, a little howdy doody,
Yeah, you're thinking Franklin is kicking ass now? Come on.
I guess he got tired of bear shit.
Ouch.
Wow.
But after the cartoon, it did make me seek out and, start reading what it was based on and that kind of thing. But it was the cartoon that brought me to the comic book.
Yeah.
And then I kind of, for a little while there, phased out. And then we had a customer come in and he's like, you haven't been reading this? And it's like, no, I haven't been reading that, And of course, they're the kind of person that, well, let me tell you what you've missed.
I guess at this point they're talking about the IDW series.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think one of the turtles had just killed the other one, and it was kind of like, wait, what? Back up. Okay, I have to read this. So I did start ordering the trades to catch up to see where it was in the story. So.
And that's a story for a lot of turtle fans that I meet. And that's also part of the excitement for me as a turtle fan. I mean, a lot of fans discovered them because of the cartoon. Mm-hmm. And when you ask a lot of these turtle fans that's their turtles, much like Adam West's Batman was my Batman, because that's how I discovered the character of Batman, even though it was in reruns.
Yeah.
That's how I became familiar with Batman and Robin and the world that they inhabited. And a lot of people came into contact with the turtles. Most fans came into contact with them because of the cartoon. But, for someone like me that started at the black and white comic level, I appreciated the cartoon. Like, it was Ninja Turtles, and it was fun. It was different. But the fact that it was Ninja Turtles and I was so hardcore into Ninja Turtles, I watched it anyway, and I would record it on my little VHS tapes and watch them. But yeah, I knew that this was the Archie Comics version of Ninja Turtles and not the Eastman and Laird version. But I dug them regardless. They were fun.
Yeah. But
it was exciting for me because I would tell friends at school, like I was in the 80s, I was not ashamed to be a comic book fan. Like I would, in high school, like a lot of my friends even tell me now, it's like we're not surprised that you do a Star Wars podcast and you illustrate comics, because we remember in high school, everybody else, the girls had the New Kids on the Block and posters in their lockers, and guys had like sports, Dallas Cowboys and everything else in their lockers. I'd open up my locker and I would have a theme each month. Like 1 month I had all my Punisher comics hanging up. And then I switch out the next month would be Wolverine, and the next month would be Ninja Turtles. And I remember prior to the cartoon, I was telling friends about, I read this, one of my favorite comics to read right now was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And that every time I would say the name, like the people's reaction was like, huh? What is that? Ninja Turtles, and so I would always try to explain why this was such a great concept and a great series, and no one really got it. So it's like, it was kind of like irritating to want to talk about Ninja Turtles, and no one knew what I was talking about. And so when the cartoon came out, it was like suddenly everybody was talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Only it was a different kind of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but it was still fun as a fan, because at least it was fun to walk through the mall and overhear someone's conversation being about Ninja Turtles, where 2 years before you wouldn't get that sort of thing. And then you'd be sitting in like a Whataburger and somebody would be talking about, oh, Michelangelo made this joke, da 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 da. And I'm thinking, this is kind of cool. Like, the world now knows about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the thing I've been trying to tell my friends about all these years. So it was kind of cool in that respect. And I appreciate the cartoon greatly, because it made the turtle fandom grow worldwide. Whereas
it did.
As great of a concept as it was, and as great as the comic book was, had there not been a cartoon and an action figure line to introduce his characters to everybody else, Turtles may have had their time in the spotlight and then may have faded away, and we may not have had any more Turtles after a few years had there not been a cartoon. So
you mean retreated into their shells?
Yeah. Good one. There you go. And speaking of Mike, when did you get introduced to Turtles?
Well, okay.
10 minutes ago.
Yeah, what are Teenage Mutant Ninja? No, okay. See, the funny thing here is, when that all started, I was completely clueless. I never got into it. I didn't really get into comics until, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years later. Yeah. And so I remember the cartoon being on, but I was never really interested. I was in middle school. I was kind of rebellious. I didn't care. I was playing a lot of D&D at the time, and didn't really kind of get into that at all. I knew it was there. I heard about it. I remember it being really popular mostly with kids a couple years younger than me.
Yeah.
So I just kind of ignored it until much later. I mean, like I said, I got into comics in high school, and even then kind of didn't get a lot of exposure to Turtles. I kind of learned more about them, but yeah, never really got huge into it.
And whose fault was that?
We could probably blame all kinds of people, but
well, I'm talking about
why did I get into comics? Yeah. Yes. I think it's pretty obvious whose fault that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spoiler, me.
Yeah. it was Thomas. But yeah, so I mean, it's kind of cool to hear you guys reminiscent about it, and I mean I can kind of enjoy your fandom for it without feeling like I'm being left out or anything, because I mean I have other things that I got into like in the same way, but it just wasn't Turtles. But yeah,
got it. But yeah, and it was fun because, like I said, suddenly the Turtle fandom exploded, and it just got wackier and wackier, and the villains. I mean, Bebop and Rocksteady were cool, even though they were silly in the cartoon. They were cool action figures. Like, I collected the figures for those first few years because they were just cool sculpts. And that was the weird thing about the action figures, is the Turtles looked like the Mirage Studios version, not the cartoon versions. And that was bizarre to a lot of the I remember a lot of the parents were, wait, why do they look so fierce as action figures, but on the cartoon they've got the big eyes and they're rounded and kind of like kid friendly. And that's why I was like I got more into the action figures than the cartoon, because the action figures still kind of invoked the look of the Eastman and Laird turtles a bit. They had no pupils and they were muscular, and they just had like just a cool design on the shell back.
Right, they weren't all smiling.
Yeah, exactly, and they weren't like they didn't have like pizza accessories like the vehicles did. Like the vehicles were like fire pizzas and all that, and they were goofy, but the figures themselves were pretty cool. So Rocksteady and Bebop were like kind of cool action figures to have on my shelf because they just had a cool look to them, a cool sculpt. But then I quickly got out of buying the turtle figures because they started getting so like bizarre with their designs. Like Pizza Face was like this mutant chef with a peg leg that was stuck to like a pizza, and they were just going bigger and crazier with every wave of action figures that they came out with. So
it almost sounds like the designers were like actively trying to piss off the companies that were making the product. That sounds like a really elaborate thing to try to make molds for,
I know the molds were just insane, and like the turtle collectors that I talked to who came up and like their turtles are the cartoon turtles and the action figures. That's why they're like so still now to this day they're hardcore into those original Playmates toys because they loved how wacky and off the wall the villains were. And then me, I'm just like, I'll just go back and reread these old black and white comics, and y'all can have all of those insanely designed villains for your collection. But another thing that came along that was really cool about that time also was the movies. I mean, especially the first movie, because Batman '89 had already hit it big, and so I guess Turtles was the next big comic book movie to become a blockbuster, because at that point everybody wanted to have their Batman. Like the Phantom came out, the Shadow, but and both are good movies for what they were. I particularly like the Shadow more than the Phantom, but they just didn't hit the big blockbuster status that Ninja Turtles did with their first movie. And what's cool about that first movie is it was pretty dark in tone. The story is pulled from, they took aspects from the first 12 issues of the original black and white run. Like when you read that first 12 issues and you've seen the movie, you think, oh, that's in the movie. Well, that's in the movie. Oh, you mean they retreat back to the farm and the turtles regroup? That's in the comic books too. Like all that stems from the original Eastman and Laird storylines. So to see that movie come out and to see that, the movie's not going to be like the cartoon. It's going to be like the black and white comics. And as a Turtles fan, I was like, finally, okay, good. I couldn't get 100% behind the cartoon, but I can definitely get 100% behind this movie because they were invoking the original classic Turtles that I became a fan of. But
was that the one with Vanilla Ice?
No.
Okay. Okay.
And that was my next point. But then in true Hollywood fashion, okay, this one was a big hit. What can we do next? So lo and behold, we got Secret of the Ooze, and we got Vanilla Ice, and we got Ninja Rap.
Ninja go.
And even though now, flash forward all these years, I appreciate the movie a lot more now than I did then.
Right.
Because when I watched that movie, I was expecting okay, they killed the Shredder in the first one. What are they going to do now? Oh, the second one comes out. Oh, what? Shredder's not dead? He's just mangled a little bit. Okay, we don't get. And then they were teasing us with the trailer. They were teasing us that Shredder was going to bring in 2 mutants. And I thought, oh, okay, they're going to give us Rocksteady and Bebop. That's going to be cool. No, we didn't get Rocksteady and Bebop. We got Toka and Razor. And I was like, what? And they defeated them with donuts? Where's this movie going? It was just like, it was insane. And another thing, if you notice about Secret of the Ooze, is they scaled really, 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 really scaled back the turtles using their weapons. Like, parents were not happy that their kids were going to see that first movie, and they got nunchucks and they got swords and everything's getting cut up and all this. And so, like, my parents were like, "Oh, my kid is getting the knives out of the kitchen drawer," and they're acting like they're Leonardo. So you'll notice in the second movie they have their weapons, but they don't really use them. It's like Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Like, Harrison Ford has a gun strapped to his waist, but he never takes it out and fires it through the whole movie. It's crazy. Like, instead, in that opening scene where they're beating up those guys who broke into, I guess, the mall in the middle of the night, and instead of Michelangelo using his nunchucks, he gets those salamis on a string and he starts waving these salamis around and beating the guy up with salamis. It's just, it's a little bit insane.
Yeah.
The third one, I'm a little mixed on the third one, because the third one, they kind of took a little bit of the inspiration from another classic turtle story from I can't remember if it was the story came from Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or it came as a short story backup story in one of the reprints. But the whole time traveling scepter it also comes from the old black and whites, and I thought that was cool that they invoked that for the third movie. It's just the movie was just kind of boring. And they stopped. And for the third movie, they didn't use the Jim Henson Company for the animatronics on the turtle heads. So when you look at the turtle heads in the first two movies, they look really good, and the mouth movements are really smooth, and the eye movement, everything is really smooth looking and lifelike. And when you watch the turtle heads in the third movie, the mouth movement, the eyes, everything's real choppy, almost like the characters at Showbiz Pizza or Chuck E. Cheese. And that's why. It's because they couldn't afford to pay Jim Henson's guys to come back and do the third movie, so they went with a different animatronics studio, and it showed. It showed big time.
And that was Stephen Amell as Casey in that one, right? Was that the third? I mean...
No, that's the newer ones. Okay. The third one is still back in the 90s, where they had Elias, how do you say his last name? Cotius? The original Casey Jones from the original movie. Yeah, Stephen Amell, he played Casey Jones in these last two Michael Bay produced movies.
Okay, so there was a fourth movie, right? When did that come out?
Oh yeah, the animated movie, which is actually connected to the first three live action movies, and they came out way later. Gosh, I want to say like 2001, 2002 maybe. I'm not quite sure, but that one was really, really well done. It had a cool story, and because it was digitally animated, they were able to have the turtles do all sorts of really crazy acrobatics, and the fight scenes were really cool. And they brought in a ton of, new creatures and characters for it. And, when you're watching the whole thing, it's not an origin story. It's acknowledging everything that it acknowledges that there's a story that came before, so you assume they're talking about the prior three movies, but they never explicitly say it. But Casey and April have a relationship. The turtles have gone through their whole thing and have kind of fallen apart and gone their separate ways, which is kind of a cool way to open a turtle story. Like Leo is off on a sabbatical. Ralph? Man, I'm tired. Raph, not Ralph. That's the bootleg Ninja Turtles. Raph is like a vigilante, and Mikey is doing kids' parties dressed as a Ninja Turtle. It's really funny how they worked all this into a story. And then they eventually all come together to fight this great evil that has come to New York City. But the whole time you never got like an origin story or backstory. So you're just like, okay, this is picking up, I guess, after the third movie. It's just this one's animated and not live action. But then they really make it obvious at the end. And one of the end scenes, in their lair, there's a trophy room. And very briefly, as they pan across the trophy room wall, on the shelves, you see Shredder's helmet. You see the time scepter from the third movie. You see a foot soldier mask from the original movie. Like, you're seeing all these little artifacts that are from the first three movies. So you're thinking, oh, there it is right there. So this is the fourth part of that series. So it was kind of a cool way to continue the live action movies, and I dug it. It was really, really cool. You know how they just kind of snuck it in there at the very end. But
That's cool.
yeah,
I know Nickelodeon has just wrapped a series. I think it was Mutant Apocalypse with them, and it was pretty good. It's not your average Nickelodeon Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. This was It was a little bit darker and a little bit grittier, and I actually enjoyed that one. I found myself recording those because I wanted to see what happened, you know.
Yeah.
But it was a lot shorter than their other series that they've put out. I don't know if they just wanted to tackle that one plot line and then it wrapped and was done, but I don't like the new one they have.
I haven't even tried the new one. They actually sent me a DVD copy to review, and I never actually reviewed it. You know, they have like, I guess because they, but anyway, I haven't even put it in because it just the design looks off to me. But
it does.
That Nickelodeon series from 2012 is insanely good. It takes the best things from the original comics, from the original cartoon, from the 2002 or 2003 cartoon series. It takes aspects of the IDW series. It takes the best of all the different versions of the Turtles that came before, and they melded it so well together. I mean, on the surface of it, it looked like it was just going to be your typical computer-animated kids show.
Yeah.
But, of course, being Ninja Turtles, I had to check it out. And just one or two episodes in, I realized, oh, my gosh, this is perfectly melded to where it appeals to kids, obviously, but there's so much layers to the storyline that it's going to excite the adult Turtle fans like me. And they did such a great job of that series. And you're right, like they capped it off with the Apocalypse storyline, which is, I guess it's also called Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where they kind of like, they took it in so many different directions. It's almost like, look guys, this is the end of our series. Let's just go crazy. Let's push the envelope. Let's do some things that we weren't allowed to do before, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, because you know what? It's going away anyway. That's the kind of attitude I feel like they had with it, and it worked. It was really good. It was really good stuff. Yeah. But then to follow it up with Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like I said, I haven't actually sat down and popped the DVD in, and that says a lot considering how big of a Turtles fan I am, because I've had that DVD for a few months now. I mean, I got it. They sent it to me before I even went into the stores, and it just sat there on my shelf. I'm like, I'll put it in later. But I saw the little snippets of it I saw online. I just like, I don't think so.
It's like their focus is more on comedy than the story. So I fall asleep with Nickelodeon on because they play SpongeBob from like 9 at night to 5 in the morning. So
SpongeBob is your Ambien? Is that what you're saying?
It is.
That's okay. Murder, She Wrote is mine.
But on Saturdays, when he goes off, the Turtles will come on. Now, if it comes on, I've watched parts and pieces of it here and there, but
Yeah.
I haven't recorded any of them.
Yeah.
It's kind of been like, oh, I feel that with the last series, they were trying to reach more of your older kids, maybe even teenagers.
Yeah.
And I feel like with this series, it's more of like your 4 to 9-year-old crowd that you're trying to get, because some of the jokes, I mean, they're a little step up from a fart joke, but that's pretty much the level of comedy they have in these. So,
and it's I think it goes beyond that their target audience. I think it's just something. It's something more than that. I feel like it's possibly the design of them.
mm-hmm.
And like I said, I'm going off of this based on just the little snippets of video I've seen on Facebook, and not having actually sat down and watched the show itself. But you can make a cartoon geared to that target audience of 4 to 10-year-olds, but still make it clever and entertaining because while the 2012 series was going on with Nickelodeon, they also put out that Half Shell Hero line where they look like the little play school Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
And they came out with like a little Half Shell Heroes animated movie. And they look like that. They had the big eyes, the stubby appendages. They look like the little action figures that they were gearing toward. It was basically the Ninja Turtles version of the Star Wars Galactic Heroes. And I got a review copy of that too, so of course I popped it in. I thought, well, it's going to be, for preschoolers. Obviously, that's what they're going for. But it was actually really entertaining. Like, the humor in it was really clever. I mean, it was on the level of, we have to keep it clean for the youngest Turtle fans. But the stuff that they were writing into it was a really clever storyline. It involved time travel and dinosaurs, and Rocksteady and Bebop were being Rocksteady and Bebop, in it. And it was actually really well done. And I'm thinking that was pretty impressive considering that the target audience is 4 to 10-year-olds. So with Rise of the Turtles, like you were saying, it's for that same audience, but it doesn't seem like they were being as clever and creative with this one.
No.
It seems like.
It's kind of like their version of the Teen Titans Go for Turtles.
Oh, okay. And I can see that. I can actually see that.
Turtles Go.
Yeah.
Go Ninja,
Go
go
Turtles.
Ninja. So we've done that already. We can't do that. Vanilla Ice don't get rights. Yeah, but Turtles, they've had. Oh, can we talk about Next Mutation? Do y'all remember that? Did anybody watch the Next Mutation TV series that came out in the late 90s?
Liz?
I'm not sure I have.
This is
I'll
the one
have
that was a live action type series?
Yeah, it was during the whole Power Rangers craze. Les, did you say that you did watch it?
Oh, yes. We did watch that one.
Yeah, it was during the Power Rangers craze, so it's diehard Turtle fans hate it. They wouldn't even give it the time of day. I'm a diehard fan, but I'll admit I kind of like it. It's entertaining, and I'll tell you why. Because it's live action. The suits have a really cool design. They kind of amped up the shell design on the suits. They look tougher. Their muscles are bigger. So design-wise, the Turtles look really cool. And they connect the show to the movies. Like they're how like in the second and third movie, their lair was no longer in the sewer because the foot soldiers had found out that hideout in the first movie. Second and third movie, their hideout was in an abandoned subway station.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they used that set for the TV series for Next Mutation. So Next Mutation is just basically a continuation of the movies. And it didn't have Shredder or anything like that, but the villains that they had in it were actually kind of conceptually speaking, really well thought out. And they had some pretty involved storylines run through the whole series. And Raph, rides around on a motorcycle. He's kind of a badass in it, honestly. And the fight in it is really good. Like, and when I say really good, not like, Bruce Lee or Jet Li, good, but it's good on the level of like Jackie Chan type stuff, where it's kind of comical, the stuff that they do while they're fighting, but at the same time it's really well choreographed fight scenes. So overall, it's a pretty entertaining series to watch for a turtle fan, and at the end of the day, that's what these things are supposed to do, is entertain us. It's not supposed to change our lives or have some deep meaning to it. It's just really there to entertain us for 30 minutes, and I think that's what it does. It does that.
Yeah.
Not like Rise of the Turtles, apparently.
Ouch.
I remember going to see the first Turtle movie. I dragged two little friends that I had at the time.
Yeah.
And they gave away little plushes at the door. So the boys got plushes. I'm standing there going, I paid for all this. How come I don't get anything?
They were giving away little plush Ninja Turtles?
Yes.
I didn't get anything.
You weren't a kid.
Well, and then,
I guess not. It wasn't high school, I guess.
and then they were visiting at the house one day, and they wanted to see the turtle books I had. And I had the first few collections, and they were mesmerized because it was all black and white. But they couldn't figure out which turtle was which because they didn't have the color headbands. And I went, you guys got to be kidding me. You have to find who it is by reading it. And they explain who it is. So taking these kids in and teaching them about movies and comic books was quite the thrill for me.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I turned them the wrong direction when I got them to watch Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Oh, God.
They loved it, but they don't consider it a bad thing to know. So, but the movies were good. I enjoyed the first 2 or 3 movies.
Yeah.
Although The Little Ice does lack something like personality or
talent,
ability or something.
I kind of see the second and third movie kind of like the Star Wars prequels, where you kind of like them, but you don't really appreciate them until years later when you revisit them.
Yeah.
Actually, I should say it this way. I appreciate the prequels a lot more now that I've seen The Last Jedi.
Oh, ouch.
That's a burn.
Yeah.
Kinda, yeah.
Saying once again, we send all of our complaints to the Fake Les account on Twitter.
Right.
Why not?
Twitter @FakeLess.
Yeah.
At Fake Les Webster. Look it up.
Oh,
It
wow.
exists.
Thanks a lot.
Look it up. It exists.
It does.
Yeah.
Does it really?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It does.
I'm not on Twitter anymore, so I don't know. I wouldn't know. I mean, I think I still have a Twitter account somewhere out there. I don't think the last time I used it was it last Halloween or the previous Halloween? Ghost Adventures was doing like the live investigation on Halloween night, and I had dusted off my Twitter login and logged in. I had to look up what my login was because I couldn't remember. It's been so long, and I was like, live tweeting to them as they were doing their investigation in hopes that my tweet would pop up on the screen, and I don't know if it ever did. Anyways, but who knows? Who knows what we have in store for Turtles next? I mean, aside from the show that's going on right now, there's word that there's something in development of another movie. Oh, we didn't really talk about those two movies. What are y'all's thoughts on the last two movies? You know, with
I actually have not seen the newest ones.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to because of Steve Amell, but they haven't hit that.
Yeah, but then there's that whole restraining order thing. But
Right,
anyway,
yeah.
you know.
I don't know if I could see that good at 50 feet.
We kid. As far as we know, that Liz does not have any restraining orders on her.
As far as I know.
As far as we know.
No, I'm a good stalker. I haven't been caught yet.
There you go.
Oh, wow.
That's the important thing right there.
Right. That's the true sign of a good stalker is not getting caught yet, I suppose.
That's right.
They haven't seen me.
If you're going to do it well.
I don't exist.
I can tell you that Jensen has a bar in Austin.
Yeah, are they both Texas boys?
They are. One's from
Okay.
Houston, the other's from Austin.
Okay. I thought I remember hearing that. What season is Supernatural on right now?
They're
29.
about to start 15, and this will be their last season. So.
That's what I heard. 15! Good night.
15,
You know
yeah.
what season I'm on? 3.
Oh, man.
I'm on season 3.
So I've been catching up on 14 this weekend.
Oh, okay.
Just
That's a lot better than me then.
I hate watching things, 1 week, and then you're like, oh, now I've got to wait a whole week. So I wait for it to hit on Netflix, and then just watch the whole season at once. So then you only have to wait a year for the next episode.
Yeah. And
It's a lot better than a week.
I know binge watching mentality is so prevalent, but that's how we do our stuff now too. And I started thinking, it's like, how did we do it back in the day, where we had to wait a whole week? To find out, what happens to Theo Huxtable because he'd got an F on his report card.
They found that joint in his chemistry book.
Right.
Yeah,
Wait a minute, did that one really happen?
it
Probably.
did.
Oh, wow.
And he used that, I was holding it for a friend.
Right.
Oh, wow.
I was holding it lit in my mouth for a friend.
For a friend, I didn't want him to do it, so I did it for him. Which, by the way, I'm willing to do for any of you.
Wow.
Wow. Okay.
Careful there, Liz. It's not legal in this state yet.
Okay.
Oh
I'm
my
kidding.
God.
I'm so kidding.
Yeah.
Sure she is.
Backing up that truck. She's backing it up.
Oh my
I've thought about that from time to time.
Smoking weed?
Well, no. The whole thing about the attention span and all of that. Today's fans, could they stand 3 years trying to figure out if Vader was Luke's father?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
They would have gone insane by the time the movie came out.
Hey, they were willing to wait for 2 years for a Game of Thrones season that they all hate.
So they'd have a petition by now.
Right.
Yeah. Now there would be a petition with 1 million signatures saying, we want you to redo Return of the Jedi so Vader's not Luke's father.
Oh, they did it with The Last Jedi, so why not?
Sure. Yeah. Fans. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, this is good talk. Appreciate you coming on, Eddie. I know you can keep on going, but I know you have other responsibilities. We don't want to keep you any further.
Yeah, I gotta tackle this last week of school coming up, beginning tomorrow morning. The last week of school. So
Sounds
It's-
sweet.
it's-
That has a ring.
On the one hand, it's good and bad because it's more laid back. You know, we've stopped taking grades for the last week. I mean, we still keep the kids in line, obviously, but you know, grades aren't taken. It's a little bit more of an easy schedule, but at the same time, there's a lot going on. There's graduation. There's faculty end of the year party. There's the last day of school parties. There's preschool. Kindergarten graduation, and there's a lot going on. So as the PE teacher, I'm making it easy on myself and all the kids. I've declared that this coming week is going to be volleyball week.
There you go.
All I got to do is bring out the volleyballs. The net is up. We go out. We play volleyball for 45 minutes. They go back to class. It doesn't get much easier than that.
There you go.
All right.
But thank y'all guys for having me on. This is, I love coming and talking on the fellowship. It's always a great time. It's always a great time. And to talk turtles is even better. I'm not gonna lie. It gets tiresome having to talk about Star Wars all the time. So when I can talk about,
imagine how Colleen feels.
Right. So when I get a chance to talk Turtles or Batman or the Punisher that's why when people ask me to come on as a guest to their show, they say, we want you to come on and talk Star Wars. No, I'm not going to talk Star Wars. Like there's another show on the station, Vagabond Nerds. They wanted me to come on and talk Star Wars. I said, no, I refuse. I will only come on your show if I could talk about anything other than Star Wars. And I said, what do you want to talk about? I want to talk about the Punisher. So we talked about the Punisher for an hour and a half. And that was wonderful and amazing. And I could have talked about the Punisher for like 3 more hours after that. It was just so liberating not to talk about Star Wars.
Yeah.
So yes, thank you for having me on to talk Turtles and not Star Wars.
Happy to help out, and you're more than welcome to join us anytime you want, man. We'll work it out.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, man.
And on that note, we're going to take a quick break and be back with Weekly Picks. And we're back. It's time for our Weekly Picks, and I'm leading off this week. So for my first choice, brand new series from Boom Entertainment. It's Angel, #1. Picking up from the issue 0 and from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's the new take of Angelus, now with a soul running around Sunnydale. This is written by Brian Edward Hill, who's Mike and I are fans of. This looks really good. I've kind of been digging what's been going on with Buffy. I'm kind of interested to see how they take on Angel, because I have not had a chance to read the issue 0, but I've been pleased with Buffy, so I expect nothing less, especially when Mr. Hill was writing.
Agreed.
Alrighty, Les, you're next.
For my first choice comes Dead Sonja #1 from Keen Spot. I bring this in because my choice last week of what was it? Junior High Horrors? Yes, Junior High Horrors. This is by the same company, and it's also by the same writer. Rob Popchak is doing the writing for this one. This is a spoof, getting the combination of Red Sonja and Conan in a character, but obviously by the title, she is dead. So she has sword-wielding zombie superpowers. This just strikes me as funny. It's got to be amusing. So I'm going to step forward and grab this double-sized, full-color issue of Dead Sonja #1.
Cool.
Interesting.
Could be interesting. Yeah, I'm kind of that one. I kind of saw that and was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Could be really good.
Give it a shot.
Yeah. Liz, you're next.
All right. For my first pick, I'm going with one from Aftershock Comics. It's called Killer Groove. This story is set back in the 70s in Los Angeles. There's a guy named Johnny who, he's an inspiring musician. He plays the guitar, but he mainly works behind the bar. Well, he runs into a mob boss, and I guess his whole life changes. Part of when I read some of this, it reminds me of, you see those older movies where the young girl goes in and she sings her heart out and they're like, honey, you just have to get more experience. You have to know love to sing about love. Well, I'm taking it, this guy starts killing for the mob and his music gets better because he's got more experience to pull from and more passion for his gift. So definitely it's going to be a crime sensation series, so we'll have to see where this one goes.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
I like that.
Alrighty, Mikey.
All right, so my first pick is a Dark Horse book, and I'm going with Hellboy versus Lobster Johnson, The Ring of Death. This, I took one look at this, and especially the cover I saw it's like an old paperback type thing. Oh man, it's pretty. But anyway, so this is a one-shot. I'm not sure if it's double-sized or not, but it's probably pretty big. But it has kind of the combination of some stories here. It's got a little bit of peek into some missing Hellboy years spent in Mexico. And it also has a story about with Hellboy and Lobster Johnson facing off in the luchador ring. So, that just sounds like fun to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just weird enough to be cool, and I'm going to take a look at this one.
Cool.
Good choice.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. Alrighty. For my second choice, I'm going with Marvel Comics, and it's Star Wars, the original Marvel years, number 108. To celebrate Marvel's 80th anniversary, sorry, Les, they are putting, I believe this is going to be just a one-shot. This is being written by Matthew Rosenberg, with several artists involved. And this is going to be a sequel to a classic Archie Goodwin story called Crimson Forever. And I remember that. I believe that was like issue 50. And of course, this takes place during the classic trilogy, obviously. But it's going to include original characters that were created during that time, including Jackson the Green Rabbit, Domina Taj, and Valance the cyborg bounty hunter. And this looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Even has a cover by Walt Simonson that looks so great. So yeah, this is going to be fun, especially when it's picking up that old story arc. That was such a good run at that time. So definitely pick that one up, especially for you classic Star Wars and classic Marvel Star Wars fans.
Cool.
I like it.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Les.
For my second choice comes Shan, number 1, from Source Point Press. Now, this is intended for mature audiences, but what it is look at comics and give them what they call a riff, just like the MST3K group. In this, you'll get a slightly weird twist on various characters, such as a Planet of the Pooches. There you go, Liz. One for you. Bozo the Robot, Randy Rocket, and one that I think is great. The Red, Royd, and Pooter. So just sit back and enjoy these weird stories, because I'm sure they're going to twist them to a point where even me may just toss the book aside and go, oh my God, what the hell was that?
Cool.
Nice.
Sounds interesting, yeah.
Alrighty, Liz.
All right. I have another dog story. It's the DC Dog Days of Summer. This they're calling an animal-sized spectacular. 80 pages, 8 stories. We're going to see Crypto with Superman, Bat Cow with Batman. I don't think I've ever seen Bat Cow. Has anybody else seen Bat Cow?
Oh, yeah. That's Damien. Yep.
I've missed that one.
Mm.
So, should be pretty good. Like I said, one shot, 8 stories. All animal stories, so should be pretty good.
Yeah, I thought about you when I saw that, so I'm not surprised. But it should be fun.
It should be.
Alrighty, Mikey.
So many bad jokes. You're just waiting for that one. But
Yeah.
okay, so my second pick is an Archie Comics book, and I am picking Blossom 666, number 4. I want to say one of us talked about this series when it started. This is a fun little twist. Actually, it's probably me now that I think about it. But anyway, it's cool. It's actually a really fun series. It focuses on a pair of twins in the Archie universe, and this is kind of leaning more towards the horror side of the Archie universe, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So these two are in a I'm trying to say friendly competition, but it's not all that friendly.
No, it's not.
to determine who's basically going to take over the world, starting with Riverdale, of course. And they managed to find an interesting way to twist things up every issue, and so it has been a really fun series for that. And not surprisingly, it's written by Cullen Bunn, for crying out loud. He's pretty good at twisting things. All you have to do is take a look at Regression to figure that one out.
Yeah.
But yeah, this has been a really fun run so far.
Yeah, I did a review on number 3, I believe, and yeah, the twins, are fighting for the right to be the Antichrist, and then of course the shock at the end of the second issue that's carried over, and then how they have to deal with that has been pretty interesting. So yeah, I'm kind of curious on how this is all going to be resolved. But yeah, it's horror, but a lot of the stuff that's going on is you don't really get that vibe. I mean, yeah, it's talking about earning the mantle of the Antichrist, but what they're doing is, there's a lot of plotting and lying and deceit and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, well, that's kind of like every day, So
right, it's a classic melodrama.
Yes, exactly. There you go. Yeah, it's been a great read so far, definitely. All right, and honorable mention.
The honorable mention is Carson of Venus, Warlord of Mars, number 1. This comes from American mythology, and it is the combination of 2 characters from the Edgar Rice Burroughs stable. One is Carson Napier, who was in the Carson of Venus series, and second is John Carter, who was the Warlord of Mars in the Mars books. This to me is intriguing because American mythology has run the 4 titles of Carson, Warlord, Moonmaid, and Pellucidar to set this series up. I'm sure that there will be more pairings for these, but to be able to see these 2 characters fight it out, not necessarily against one another, but they are fighting things like warriors, killer robots, villains, and the like. So, being a Burroughs follower, I am looking forward to this, and I am definitely going to go talk to the comic shop and say, get this for me, please.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yep.
there's some interesting possibilities there with those characters, for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any special shout outs or mentions? Obviously, we want to thank Eddie Medina for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Eddie.
That was pretty cool.
Yep. It's always fun having Eddie around. It's always a good time. And we'll definitely have him on again here real soon. And apparently, we'll be on the Rancor bit here real soon, too. We'll keep you advised of that. Just follow us on social media.
Once we figure that out, we'll let you know.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, we'll let y'all know on Facebook and Twitter, and so y'all need to be following us on there, and we'll tell you how to here in just a moment. Any other special shout outs or mentions this week?
Yeah, I mean, in a week full of downers, I'm actually going to go ahead and spotlight one of them. We lost another of the TV greats this week. Tim Conway passed away at the age of 85. That's a tough one.
That was.
Yeah, he's had some health issues for the last couple of years, but such amazing talent. I'm sure y'all guys saw it. That when I heard about that, I posted that somewhere out there, Don Knotts and Tim Conway are making Harvey Korman laugh his ass off, and I believe that. If you've never seen any of his work, just go to YouTube and type in Tim Conway and just click on all the links.
Yeah, anything and everything, as much as you can get. It's amazing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly
really funny guy.
Particularly focus on the dentist. Oh God, the elephant. Just type in Tim Conway elephant. That's an old Mama's Family sketch. That you got Carol Burnett and Dick Van Dyke laughing their butt off, but not as bad as when Vicki Lawrence made her comment, which, a couple of years ago, I finally heard the unbleeped version of what she said, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see what that bleeped at. But just some great stuff. Definitely check it. Yeah, that was definitely a downer. That, those type of shows will never be on again, and someone like him is never going to be around again. It's sad.
Yep. So condolences to his family and friends, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And just a side note, I don't mean to, turn away from that, but watching some of those videos, which I had to do after hearing the news, I saw you might be interested in this, and I clicked on that link, and it was a sketch from, I guess it was either the Dean Martin show or the Dean Martin special or something like that. And the sketch included Jonathan Winters. So y'all already know what's going to be coming up here.
Mm.
And there was a little bit of a thing in front of it with one of the producers, who was of the producers at the time, was talking about Dean Martin's lines were all sketched on cue cards. Jonathan Winters had nothing. He just walked in and ad-libbed everything he said. And by the end of the sketch, Dean, bless his heart, he did so well not to laugh. But right there to the end, I mean, he literally fell out of his chair because it was all kind of them being on an airplane, and Dean was playing himself, and Jonathan Winters was playing a businessman, and of course was talking to him and all that. So it was so hilarious. So while you're doing that, check that out too. talk about something we'll never see again. The types of like Jonathan Winters and Robin Williams, both of them were very similar of just the spontaneity, the improv, and the insanity, and funny. They were always funny.
Always.
And those we will never see again, and that's a sad thing. So. Mm-hmm. All right. Any other special mentions or shout-outs this week?
Nope.
All right. If not, we'll go on to our regular shout-outs. And first off, I want to thank Pop Goes with Culture for allowing us to be part of their podcast network. We'll have a link in our show notes, so check them out and the other fine fellow podcasters that are part of this network. We do appreciate their support as always. And, of course, we always appreciate the support of Potter Family, spreading the word of the fellowship on Twitter. You should definitely go check out some of those shows, and the best way to do that is while you're on Twitter, just do a search, #PotternFamily as one word, and just scroll through, and whatever catches your fancy, download that episode and check it out, and have some fun. Thank you guys for your support. And want to thank Manny the Martyr for supplying music to our podcast. Great group of guys, great musicians, love their work. We'll have a link in the show notes to check out some of their stuff. We highly recommend that you do that. And last but certainly not least, you, dear listener, thank you for downloading and listening to today's episode. We appreciate your support. We just appreciate your support all the time. We value your feedback. If you have a comment, suggestion, question, complaint, observation, whatever, we would love to hear from you. And there are several ways that you can contact us. Email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net is our email address. Or you can go to the website and click on the About Us tab, and there's a contact form there that you can fill out. You can contact us through social media. We are on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks. Feel free to follow us there. And if you're in the DFW area and interested in checking out the meet and gab that we're having in June, there is a Facebook event up there posted. So feel free to click on that you're interested or going, and we'd be happy to see you. We're obviously on Twitter as well, at Fellowship Geeks. Feel free to follow us there. If you like to follow our personal Twitter accounts, by all means, do so. Mike can be found at Mikey Geek. Liz can be found at LN_Geek. And I can be found at TomTCGeek. And wherever you download our episodes, we would greatly appreciate it if you would take a couple moments to rate and review our show. Thank you very, very much. Any final words before we say goodbye? Other than thanks again, Eddie, and we'll see you soon, whether it's on our show or on your show.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening. We appreciate your support as always, guys. It's truly appreciated. And until next time, geek on, my friends.
We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,